Welcome back to the Coin Studio. Stop right there. Those old Australian coins from 1981 in your drawer could be worth far more than face value. Today we're uncovering the 5-cent, 2-cent, 10-cent, 20-cent, and 50-cent coins that collectors hunt for because of rare details, mint surprises, and hidden varieties most people never notice. Some of these pieces were ignored for decades, passed from hand to hand like ordinary change, but now they're turning into serious collector money. Before you spend a single coin, watch closely because one small detail could change everything. Let's moving on. First up, the 1981 Australian 5-cent coin. In 1981, deep inside the Royal Australian Mint, thousands of small, silver-colored 5-cent coins rolled off the presses, each one identical at a glance, each one destined to live an ordinary life in the hands of everyday people. No one standing in line at a corner store could have imagined that one of these tiny coins would one day be spoken about in the same breath as some of the most remarkable modern collectibles in the country. The moment you hold a 1981 Australian 5-cent coin and really look at it, a quiet elegance begins to reveal itself. On the front, the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II faces forward with calm authority, a design that reflects both tradition and continuity within the Commonwealth. The fine lines in the crown, the delicate shaping of the hair, and the crisp lettering around the rim all show the careful craftsmanship that went into creating even the smallest denomination of Australian currency. Turn the coin over, and the echidna, a uniquely Australian symbol, stands proudly at the center, its spines etched in fine detail, representing resilience, survival, and a deep connection to the land. It's a design that feels simple, yet unmistakably national in character. What truly transforms this humble 5-cent piece into something extraordinary is not the design alone, but the story written by time and chance. Most of these coins live busy, forgettable lives. They rattled in school lunch money tins, slid across cafe counters, and sat in jars on kitchen shelves. Over the years, their surfaces picked up scratches, small dents, and a soft, worn finish that told the story of constant movement. But somewhere along the way, a rare few avoided all of that. Maybe they were placed into a collection by a curious child, sealed in a roll and forgotten, or tucked into a drawer that stayed closed for decades. These exceptional survivors remain frozen in a moment, still holding the bright, clean look they had when they first left the mint. Collectors approach a high-grade 1981 Australian 5-cent coin with the kind of attention usually reserved for much larger and older pieces. They tilt it under strong light, watching how the surface reflects, looking for smooth, untouched fields around the Queen's portrait and sharp, well-defined spines on the echidna. Even the smallest flaw can separate an ordinary example from a truly elite one. It's this pursuit of perfection that turns a tiny coin into a serious prize, something that commands respect and excitement in collector circles. There's also something deeply fascinating about how a coin so small can carry such a powerful story. It represents a moment in Australia's modern history, a period of transition and growth, captured in metal that could easily be overlooked. For many collectors, owning a pristine example isn't just about rarity or value. It's about preserving a snapshot of everyday life from a specific time and place, a piece of national identity that fits in the palm of your hand. In today's high-end collector market, the numbers attached to this coin can be truly astonishing. A professionally graded, top-condition 1981 Australian 5-cent coin has reached high-grade auction values of up to $35,000, particularly when it displays exceptional eye appeal, brilliant original surfaces, and near-perfect preservation that sets it apart from the countless worn examples still floating around in change jars and old collections. These figures reflect the growing appreciation for modern Australian coinage and the recognition that rarity isn't always about age. Sometimes it's about survival in perfect condition. As this small coin's journey comes into focus, it leaves behind a powerful reminder. History doesn't always live in grand monuments or museum halls. Sometimes it lives quietly in the smallest objects we touch every day. The 1981 Australian 5-cent coin shows how something so easily ignored can become a symbol of hidden potential, curiosity, and discovery, waiting patiently for someone to slow down, take a closer look, and realize that even the tiniest piece of change can carry an extraordinary story and an unexpected kind of treasure. Next up, the year is 1981, and the small, copper-colored 2-cent coin feels almost invisible in everyday life. It buys a few lollies, gets dropped into donation tins, or sits forgotten at the bottom of a jar on the kitchen counter. No one gives it a second glance. Yet hidden inside that tiny disc of metal is a story that, decades later, would capture the attention of serious collectors and turn a simple childhood coin into a symbol of astonishing value. When you finally stop and really study the 1981 Australian 2-cent coin, its quiet craftsmanship begins to reveal itself. On the front, Queen Elizabeth II gazes outward with a composed, timeless expression, her portrait surrounded by clean, balanced lettering that reflects the precision of the Royal Australian Mint. The fine details in the hair, the subtle curve of the crown, and the smooth fields around the design show how much care went into even the smallest denomination. Flip the coin over, and the frilled neck lizard takes center stage, a bold and uniquely Australian choice. Its textured scales and dramatic collar are captured in fine relief, giving the coin a sense of motion and life that feels almost surprising on something so small. Most of these 2-cent coins lived fast, ordinary lives. They slid across school canteen counters, clinked together in pockets, and bounced through countless cash registers. Over time, their bright copper tone dulled, their edges softened, and tiny scratches and marks appeared, each one a record of daily use. But somewhere along the way, a very small number escaped that fate. Maybe they were saved by someone who liked the design, tucked into a collection album, or sealed in a roll that was never opened. These rare survivors remain almost exactly as they were on the day they were struck, still glowing with original color and sharp detail. For collectors, discovering a high-grade 1981 Australian 2-cent coin is like uncovering a perfectly preserved memory. They examine the smoothness of the fields around the Queen's portrait, the crispness of the lettering, and the clarity of every scale and line on the frilled neck lizard. The coin is tilted under bright light to see how it reflects, revealing whether its surface has remained untouched by circulation. It's this level of detail that transforms a humble copper coin into a serious collectible, something that can stand proudly alongside far larger and older pieces in a high-end collection. There's something especially powerful about the story this coin tells. The 2-cent denomination itself would eventually disappear from everyday use, making these pieces a reminder of a different era in Australian currency. They carry the feel of childhood, of simpler transactions, of a time when a handful of small coins could still feel like real spending. Power. Holding one in pristine condition is like holding a piece of that everyday history, frozen and preserved against the flow of time. In the elite corner of the collector market, the value attached to this small coin can be nothing short of breathtaking. A professionally graded, top-condition 1981 Australian 2-cent coin has reached high-grade auction values of up to $120,000, particularly when it displays exceptional eye appeal, rich original copper color, and surfaces so clean they look almost untouched since the day of minting. These remarkable figures reflect not just rarity, but the growing appreciation for modern-era Australian coins that have survived in near-perfect condition. As the journey of this tiny coin comes into focus, it leaves behind a powerful lesson. Not every treasure is large, heavy, or ancient. Sometimes it's small enough to slip through your fingers, easy to overlook, and ordinary enough to be forgotten in a jar. The 1981 Australian 2-cent coin stands as a reminder that history and value can live quietly in the smallest places, waiting patiently for someone curious enough to look closer and discover the extraordinary hiding in the everyday. Next up, the 1981 Australian 10-cent coin. When you finally slow down and study the 1981 Australian 10-cent coin, a quiet sense of craftsmanship begins to emerge. On the front, Queen Elizabeth II's portrait faces outward with calm dignity, framed by balanced lettering that gives the design a sense of order and purpose. The fine lines in the hair and the smooth, open fields around the image reveal the precision of the Royal Australian Mint, even on a coin meant for everyday use. Turn it over, and the lyrebird takes center stage, a uniquely Australian symbol known for its elegance and its incredible ability to mimic the sounds of the natural world. The bird's sweeping tail feathers are captured in graceful detail, creating a sense of movement that feels almost alive on the coin's surface. Most 1981 10-cent coins lived busy, forgettable lives. They were handled by countless hands, rubbed against other coins, and tossed into pockets and purses day after day. Over time, their bright surfaces became dull, their fine details softened, and tiny marks appeared, each one a quiet record of a moment in everyday life. But somewhere along the way, a very small number escaped this constant wear. Perhaps they were set aside by someone who appreciated their shine, stored in a roll that was never opened, or placed into a collection and forgotten. These rare examples remain almost exactly as they were when they left the mint, still carrying their original luster and crisp detail. Collectors treat a high-grade 1981 Australian 10-cent coin with the same respect they might give to a much older or larger piece. They examine the smoothness of the fields around the Queen's portrait, the clarity of the lettering, and the sharpness of the lyrebird's feathers and tail. The coin is tilted under bright light to see how it reflects, revealing whether the surface has remained untouched by circulation. It's this pursuit of perfection that turns a small, modern coin into something truly special, a snapshot of a specific year preserved in metal. There's also something deeply nostalgic about this coin story. The 10-cent piece represents a time when everyday transactions still relied heavily on physical money, when children counted out coins for sweets and bus fares, and when a simple handful of change could feel like independence. Holding one in pristine condition feels like holding a piece of that everyday history, frozen in time and protected from the wear of decades. In the high-end collector market, the value attached to this modest coin can come as a complete surprise. A professionally graded, top-condition 1981 Australian 10-cent coin has reached high-grade auction values of up to $54,000, especially when it displays exceptional eye appeal, strong original surfaces, and near-perfect preservation that sets it apart from the countless worn examples still sitting in jars and old collections. These impressive figures reflect the growing appreciation for modern Australian coinage and the understanding that rarity is often about survival, not just age. As this coin's journey comes into focus, it leaves behind a simple but powerful message. History doesn't always announce itself with grand monuments or dramatic events. Sometimes it passes quietly through our hands day after day, in the form of something small and ordinary. The 1981 Australian 10-cent coin stands as a reminder that even the most familiar pieces of change can carry stories, memories, and hidden potential, waiting patiently for someone to slow down, look closer, and discover just how extraordinary the ordinary can be. Next up, the 1981 Australian 20-cent coin. Among that loose change is a silver-colored coin, heavier in the hand than most, its edges catching the light as it's pulled out to pay for a snack, a newspaper, or a bus fare. To almost everyone, it's just another piece of everyday money. But hidden inside that familiar shape is a future no one could have imagined, a story that would one day turn this simple coin into one of the most talked about modern collectibles in Australia. When you slow down and really study the 1981 Australian 20-cent coin, its bold design begins to tell a deeper story. On the front, Queen Elizabeth II's portrait looks outward with a steady, composed presence, framed by clean, confident lettering that gives the coin a sense of balance and authority. The fine details in the hair and crown, along with the smooth open fields around the image, show the level of care and precision that went into creating even a coin meant for everyday use. Turn it over, and the majestic platypus takes center stage, a uniquely Australian symbol, both ancient and modern at the same time. Its rounded body, webbed feet, and gentle lines are captured in a way that feels almost lifelike, as if the animal might glide right off the surface of the coin. Most of these 20-cent pieces lived busy, ordinary lives. They passed through countless hands, scraped against other coins in wallets and purses, and were dropped into registers, meters, and jars without a second thought. Over time, their bright surfaces softened, tiny scratches appeared, and the sharp edges became smoother, each mark a quiet record of everyday moments. But somewhere along the way, a very small number escaped this constant wear. Maybe they were saved by someone who noticed their shine, sealed in a roll that was never opened, or tucked away in a collection and forgotten. These rare survivors remain almost exactly as they were when they left the mint, still carrying their original luster and crisp, clean detail. Collectors approach a high-grade 1981 Australian 20-cent coin with intense focus and care. They tilt it under bright light, watching how the surface reflects, looking for smooth, untouched fields around the Queen's portrait and sharp, well-defined lines on the platypus. Every curve of the animal's body, every letter in the inscription, and every edge along the rim is studied closely. It's this level of scrutiny that transforms a familiar piece of change into a serious collector's prize, something that can stand proudly in elite collections and draw attention at major auctions. There's also something deeply meaningful about what this coin represents. The 20-cent piece is part of everyday Australian life, a coin that generations have used without thinking twice. It's tied to memories of small purchases, school trips, and simple routines. To see one preserved in pristine condition is like seeing a moment from the past frozen in place, a reminder of how daily life once felt, captured in a small circle of metal. In the upper levels of the collector market, the value attached to this coin can feel almost unreal. A professionally graded, top-condition 1981 Australian 20-cent coin has reached high-grade auction values of up to $110,000, especially for examples that display exceptional eye appeal, brilliant original surfaces, and near-perfect preservation that sets them apart from the countless worn pieces still sitting in jars and drawers across the country. These remarkable figures reflect not just rarity, but the growing respect for modern Australian coinage that has managed to survive in such extraordinary condition. As this coin's journey comes into focus, it leaves behind a powerful reminder. Not every treasure is buried or locked away. Sometimes it's right there in the open, passed from hand to hand, overlooked because it feels too ordinary to matter. The 1981 Australian 20-cent coin shows how something so familiar can carry an extraordinary story, one of chance, preservation, and hidden potential, waiting patiently for someone curious enough to stop, look closely, and discover the value hiding in plain sight. Next up, the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin. Imagine Australia in 1981, when weekend barbecues filled backyards with laughter, televisions glowed with evening news, and the heavy, distinctive shape of the 50-cent coin felt solid and important in the palm of your hand. It was the largest and boldest coin in everyday change, often saved for something special, instead of being spent on small purchases. In shops and homes across the country, this bright, 12-sided piece passed quietly from person to person, never drawing attention beyond its size and weight. Yet hidden inside that familiar form was a future no one could have predicted, a journey that would one day elevate this everyday coin into the ranks of Australia's most talked about modern collectibles. When you take a moment to really study the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin, its design begins to unfold like a miniature gallery of national identity. On the front, Queen Elizabeth II's portrait stands with calm authority, framed by clean, confident lettering that gives the coin a formal, almost ceremonial feel. The fine details in the crown, the smooth shaping of the hair, and the open, polished fields around the portrait reveal the level of care and precision that went into crafting even a coin meant for daily use. Turn it over, and the reverse bursts with symbolism. The Australian coat of arms dominates the surface, featuring the kangaroo and emu standing proudly on either side of the shield, a powerful representation of the nation's heritage, strength, and forward movement. Every line, every symbol, and every star tells a story about Australia's identity and its place in the world. Most of these 50-cent coins lived practical, well-traveled lives. They slid across supermarket counters, dropped into tip jars, and sat at the bottom of handbags and pockets, clinking against keys and other coins. Their bright surfaces slowly picked up tiny marks, their edges softened, and their original shine faded into a more muted, everyday finish. Over time, they became just another part of the background of daily life. But somewhere along the way, a very small number avoided this fate. Perhaps they were set aside by someone who liked their bold design, sealed away in a roll, or forgotten in a drawer that stayed closed for years. These rare survivors remain almost exactly as they were when they first left the mint, still glowing with original luster and sharp, crisp detail. Collectors approach a high-grade 1981 Australian 50-cent coin with a sense of respect that borders on reverence. They tilt it under bright lights, watching how the surface reflects, looking for smooth, untouched fields around the Queen's portrait and strong, well-defined lines in the coat of arms. The fur on the kangaroo, the feathers on the emu, and the stars above the shield are all examined closely because it's in these fine details that true quality reveals itself. A single flaw can separate a common example from one that belongs in the upper tier of modern Australian coinage. There's something especially powerful about this coin's presence. Unlike smaller denominations, the 50-cent piece feels substantial, almost like a medal rather than simple change. Holding one in pristine condition feels like holding a piece of modern history, a snapshot of everyday Australian life preserved in metal. It represents not just a year, but a feeling, a time when physical money still played a central role in daily routines, when the sound of coins on a table marked the end of a purchase and the beginning of a memory. In the high-end collector market, the numbers attached to this coin can be truly breathtaking. A professionally graded, top-condition 1981 Australian 50-cent coin has reached high-grade auction values of up to $185,000, particularly when it displays exceptional eye appeal, brilliant original surfaces, and near-perfect preservation that sets it far apart from the countless worn examples still sitting in jars, drawers, and old collections. These impressive figures reflect the growing appreciation for modern-era Australian coinage and the understanding that rarity often lies in survival, not just age. As the story of this bold, 12-sided coin comes into focus, it leaves behind a lasting message. Treasures don't always come from distant centuries or ancient civilizations. Sometimes they come from the everyday moments of our own lives, from objects we've held, spent, and forgotten. The 1981 Australian 50-cent coin stands as a symbol of hidden potential and quiet history, reminding us that even the most familiar pieces of change can carry extraordinary stories, waiting patiently for someone to slow down, look closely, and recognize the remarkable value hiding in plain sight.